Deep in the remote villages of Armenia, people vanish without a trace. Bodies turn up with strange symbols, eyes frozen in terror. Whispers of an ancient cult, secret rituals, and a darkness that never died. What really happened in these forgotten lands? Let's uncover the truth, but be warned, some mysteries are meant to stay buried. The cold wind blew through the remote village of Kozak in Armenia. A strange silence enveloped the small settlement. Except for the occasional sounds of livestock and the whistling of the wind, everything seemed frozen in time. Chapter 1. The Strange Beginning. On a winter night in 1998, local farmer Jakub Melkonian set out on his horse toward the mountains. He never returned. Initially, it was assumed that he had been attacked by a wild animal or fallen victim to harsh weather conditions. But 3 days later, when his lifeless body was found, suspicions deepened. Jakub's body bore no bite marks from any predators. Instead, there was a strange mark on his neck, as if he had been strangled. The most unsettling detail was his wide-open eyes, frozen in terror, as if he had seen something horrifying before his death. The police arrived and started an investigation, but no clear leads were found. Chapter 2. A series of disappearances. After this, more incidents followed. The next year, a young woman from the village, Irina Tersahakian, suddenly went missing. Her body was never found. In 2001, another farmer, Levon Sarkisian, disappeared in the same manner. By now, the villagers realized this was not just a coincidence. Police investigations dragged on, but the number of cases kept increasing. Between 1998 and 2018, a total of 17 murders and 25 disappearances were recorded. Some striking similarities were found in each case. All victims had disappeared after sundown. Those who were found dead had the same mysterious marks on their bodies. Forensic reports indicated the presence of an unknown sedative in all the corpses. In every case, the victim's eyes remained open, showing clear signs of fear. Chapter 3. Turning points in the investigation. Several small clues emerged during the investigations. In 2004, a strange symbol was found carved into a stone near the home of a missing person. In 2010, a witness claimed to have seen shadowy figures in black robes moving through the village at night. In 2013, a local hunter found a blood-stained knife, but DNA tests yielded no conclusive results. In 2017, a confidential informant suggested that a certain group, linked to ancient rituals, might be involved. Forensic analysis confirmed that the method of killing was consistent across all cases, with strangulation being the primary cause of death. Chapter 4. Police reports and furs. After the first murder in 1998, local police filed an FIR against an unidentified suspect. By 2005, the case was escalated to national authorities and a specialized investigation team took charge. In 2012, a local priest was taken into custody as a suspect, but he was released due to lack of evidence. In the 2018 report, police claimed to have discovered new crucial information, though the investigation remained ongoing. Chapter 5. The Darkness Within. As the investigation deepened, the case became increasingly complex. The search for the truth led detectives through dark alleys and the lonely mountain paths of the remote region. But before the full mystery could be unraveled, Dr. Tadavajan, the lead investigator, vanished without a trace one night. Was this the work of supernatural forces? Or was there truly a sinister killer lurking in the shadows of this desolate land? Would the police ever solve this mystery? Or would this remote region of Armenia forever remain a ghostly village shrouded in an unsolved enigma? Chapter 6. The Vanishing Trail. Dr. Tadavajan's disappearance sent shockwaves through the investigative team. Officers scoured the area, retracing his last known steps. His car was found abandoned by the riverbank, the engine still warm, as if he had stepped out just moments before he vanished. Inside the vehicle, police found his notepad, open to a page with hurriedly written words, "The Old Monastery, Midnight." Following this cryptic clue, the team turned their focus to a ruined monastery on the outskirts of the village. According to local legends, This monastery had been abandoned for centuries, rumored to be the site of occult practices. Detectives arrived at the ruins just before midnight. The air was thick with fog, and the silence was oppressive. As they entered, a faint metallic scent filled their nostrils. In the center of the monastery, they discovered something chilling: an altar covered in dried blood, with bizarre symbols scrawled around it. Suddenly, a faint whisper echoed through the darkness. The officers turned, guns drawn, but saw nothing. The wind picked up, rattling the old wooden beams. Just then, a blood-curdling scream tore through the silence. It came from outside. Chapter 7: The Silent Witness. Rushing out, the team found a lone figure crouched near the entrance, a frail, elderly woman, her face streaked with tears. She was whispering frantically in Armenian, her hands trembling. Through broken sobs, she identified herself as Anahit, a former nun who had lived in the village decades ago. "They took him," she whispered, "like they took the others." She spoke of a secret society that had existed for centuries, performing rituals to appease an ancient, nameless entity. The victims were chosen carefully, those who had seen too much, those who had asked too many questions. Dr. Tadavajan had gotten too close to the truth, and now he was gone. Chapter 8: The Final Revelation. With renewed urgency, the investigators dug deeper. Old records revealed disturbing truths. The monastery had indeed been the center of secret rituals in the 1800s. Survivors of those times had spoken of disappearances, of eerie chanting at night. Then, in an unexpected breakthrough, an anonymous tip led police to an underground tunnel beneath the monastery. What they found inside changed everything. Lying in the damp, narrow passage was Dr. Tadavajan's coat, torn and stained with blood. Further in, they found crude wooden cages, as if people had been imprisoned there. And on the walls, names were scratched into the stone, names of the missing villagers. As they pieced together the evidence, one thing became clear: the murders and disappearances were not random. They were part of something much older, something more sinister than anyone had imagined. Chapter 9: The Hunt Begins. Armed with new evidence, the police launched a full-scale operation. Surveillance was increased, and forensic teams re-examined past crime scenes. Every suspect, every whisper of conspiracy was followed up. Yet, the deeper they delved, the more resistance they faced. Witnesses who had spoken out went missing. Critical files vanished from archives. Someone, perhaps multiple people, wanted the truth buried. Would they uncover the full extent of the conspiracy before it was too late? Or would this case, like so many before it, fade into legend, another chilling tale whispered in the dark corners of Armenia's forgotten villages? Chapter 10: A Shadow in the Dark. The morning after the monastery discovery, the investigative team met in the village police station. Chief Investigator Armin Petrosyan studied the evidence carefully: Dr. Tadavajan's blood-stained coat, the list of names carved into the underground tunnel, and the chilling account of the elderly nun, Anahit. "This is bigger than we thought," he muttered. Before they could proceed further, a new piece of evidence surfaced. A farmer named Havset Melikian reported seeing hooded figures moving near the forest edge the previous night. When officers rushed to investigate, they discovered a freshly dug pit. Inside, partially buried, lay the decomposed remains of 2 missing villagers from 2015. But there was something even more disturbing: an ancient-looking dagger placed between the bodies, its blade covered in strange symbols. Forensic analysis revealed that the victims had been sacrificed in a ritualistic manner. The dagger's markings were traced to an obscure sect that had existed in the region for centuries, one known for performing forbidden ceremonies to ensure prosperity and protection. But from what? Or whom? Chapter 11: The Ghosts of the Past. In their pursuit of answers, investigators uncovered forgotten archives buried deep in the old village records. Documents from the 1800s spoke of a secret society that worshipped an unknown deity, demanding human sacrifices every few years to prevent disaster from befalling the village. These sacrifices always took place under the cover of darkness, and were meticulously covered up. The last recorded sacrifice had been in 1946. After that, the records abruptly ended. Had the society truly disappeared? Or had they merely gone underground, waiting for the right time to return? Meanwhile, the forensic team made another chilling discovery. The unknown sedative found in the murder victims' bodies bore similarities to a rare herb that grew only in the dense forests surrounding the village. This herb had a long history of use in ancient rituals, causing a state of paralysis while keeping the victim conscious. A horrifying thought. Chapter 12. The Vanishing Witness. Just when the team seemed to be making progress, Anahit, the old nun who had given them vital information, disappeared without a trace. Her house was found ransacked, and on her table lay a single object, a severed raven's wing. Locals whispered that this was a warning, a symbol used by the ancient cult to silence those who spoke too much. The pressure mounted. Who was behind these murders? Was the village still home to the old cult, hidden in plain sight? And if so, how many more victims would there be before the nightmare ended? Chapter 13. The Last Clue. Then, an unexpected breakthrough came. A faded photograph from the early 1900s, found in the village's oldest home. The image showed a group of men standing in front of the monastery, dressed in long black robes. At the center stood a man wearing an elaborate mask, its design eerily similar to the symbols found on the bodies of the victims. Matching the faces in the photograph with modern genealogical records, the investigators made a shocking discovery. Several descendants of these men still lived in the village. Among them were respected community leaders, business owners, and even law enforcement officers. Could it be possible that those in charge of solving the case were, in fact, the very ones trying to bury it? Chapter 14. The Trap. Realizing they could trust no one, investigator Petrosine devised a risky plan. He and a small team of officers staged a fake disappearance, leaking false information that a key witness had surfaced with critical evidence. If someone within the village truly belonged to the cult, they would attempt to silence this witness. Under the cover of night, the investigators hid in an abandoned barn on the outskirts of the village, waiting. Hours passed. Then, just past midnight, shadowy figures emerged from the trees. Dressed in dark robes, they moved silently, their faces concealed beneath hoods. The officers held their breath, watching as the figures surrounded the barn. Then, in a swift, coordinated move, they sprang into action. Chapter 15. The Final Revelation. Gunfire erupted as officers moved in, cornering the suspects. As the hoods were pulled back, the truth was finally revealed. Among them were the village mayor, the head of the local police force, and several prominent townspeople. Under intense interrogation, the arrested cult members confessed. The rituals had never stopped. For centuries, they had continued their sacrifices, believing it was the only way to maintain balance in the village. Dr. Tadavajan had uncovered too much, and for that, he had to be eliminated. The same fate awaited Anahit and the many others who had vanished over the years. But one mystery remained. Where was Dr. Tadavajan? Chapter 16. The Final Horror. Following the confessions, officers raided a hidden chamber beneath the monastery. What they found there would haunt them forever. Chains hung from the walls, stained with old blood. Ritualistic carvings covered every surface. And in the center of the chamber, lying in a shallow pit, was Dr. Tadavajan. He was alive, but barely. His body was weak, his voice hoarse. "They were preparing me for the next ritual," he whispered. Chapter 17. The End? With the cult dismantled and its leaders arrested, the village breathed a sigh of relief. But scars remained. Families still mourned their lost ones. The monastery was sealed off, declared a crime scene. As for Dr. Tadavajan, he left Armenia shortly after his recovery, unable to remain in the land that had nearly consumed him. But even after the arrests, one question lingered. Had they truly ended the horror? Or were there still those lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to begin again? As the cold wind blew through the village of Kozak, a whisper seemed to echo through the trees. "It is never over.